So today's webinar is on data analytics, using it to unmask your Epicor financials. So this is a webinar topic that I've been anxious to present for some time, because we all know that financial management, of course, is one of the most important responsibilities of owners, business managers, everybody within the company. Because if we don't make good management decisions based on our profits and cash flow and the financial condition of the company, none of us might have our jobs for long. So that money in the background, that's kind of important. So and of course, in an ERP system, every action we take in an ERP system has an impact on financials. So we have to make sure we're monitoring and evaluating them in a very controlled manner. And as many of you know, getting complete and actionable view of financial activities, it's pretty difficult in Epicor. So today we want to talk about the growing use of analytics in financial management, and specifically show you how Analogyx uses AI-powered analytics to provide you with that complete view of your Epicor data, and then the resulting decision-making power it gives to you. So a quick look at today's plan, so you know where we are. So since data analytics is somewhat new area for a lot of manufacturing users, I always like to cover a few basic slides. I apologize for return or repeat viewers if you've seen these before, but I'll blow through them. Then we'll look at today's topic, which is, of course, on Epicor financial data, and then we'll look at why IHS feels Analogyx is a solid solution for the Epicor market. We'll have some Q&A time, and then, of course, not to be missed, our drawing for our $25 Amazon gift card. So, quick notes on who we are for those of you new to Analogyx BI and/or IHS. So, Analogyx is becoming a leader in analytics development. They have a global presence across many industries. So, for the past year, IHS has been working with Analogyx. Since we have such a strong background rooted in Epicor, we worked with Analogyx to integrate Analogyx into Epicor. So we now have pre-built connectors and work very closely with all the Epicor functionality and terminology. So the Analogyx guys, they know data. IHS, we know Epicor. So together we've come up with a product that we're pretty excited about and is seeing a lot of success in the market. So, data analytics overview. This is one of the slides I warned you about if you've seen this before. I use this all the time, but I can't find a slide that really says it better. Data analytics, the collection and comprehensive evaluation of data from different sources. In today's world, we implemented ERP for this goal of single source of truth, but in manufacturing, that's pretty hard to do, because you've got all your business system, which is your ERP, but then you might have like shop floor equipment putting out data, external connections such as payroll, taxes, e-commerce, website. So all these different systems we need to pull together, and by pulling them all together, then the next step is, okay, let's use that information to look forward, and do decision-making capabilities, not just based on what we think might be happening. So the formula is, we take your data, which you're already churning out and creating every day. We apply the analysis techniques to it to come up with the new term in the industry, data-driven decisions, which is basically, again, making decisions based on what's really happening in your company. And as Forrester report, data-driven companies are growing 30% annual on average. So that's nothing to sneeze about. That's quite a bit of growth, especially in today's market. And I like to always run through this, the 4 types of data analytics, just for those of you who are new to analytics. The descriptive on the lower left, we start with descriptive analytics, and that's like what's happening in my business. Kind of rearview mirror, detailing past events, and this is the most frequently used type of analytics. Then we move to diagnostics. Why is it happening? So this is like drill down dashboards, most common, like find the source of the problem. And this is where most Epicor reports and dashboards stop. What happened, and a limited view of why it happened. These two, diagnostic and descriptive, typically go hand in hand, and what we consider, backward-looking analytics. So as we move to the right, then we got predictive. So this is, what's likely to happen. This is where you first start getting, an edge applying modeling to your data to determine trends and probabilities. You can start doing forecasting, based on current events using, codependent variables. I always talk a lot about a good example being looking at shop floor maintenance, planning maintenance for your machines. Many times it's kind of a guessing game where you just establish a time frame whether it needs it or not. But with predictive analytics, we can pull in different parameters, like oil pressure, machine temperature, cycles, all these things can be pulled in and analyzed together to come up with, a prediction of when your next machine maintenance is required. And then we move into prescriptive. This is, what do I need to do? This is where we start using machine learning. So we start recognizing and reacting to patterns in your data to overcome, future questions and challenges. Example I use all the time, of course, is purchasing. It's a big one. Where should we buy from? So each time I purchase, the source location, the best place to buy from might be different. Pricing changes, logistics, carriers change all the time, that based on supplier quality. So by pulling all these things together and applying prescriptive analytics to it, you can start, getting a predictor, of, okay, here's where I should buy it from, and not just based on, hey, they got the best price. So as I said, the diagnostic and descriptive considered backward looking, forward looking, prescriptive and predictive. This is where you start looking ahead. So using all the data you've got to actually make decisions. And then, as you move forward, from backward to forward looking, your value starts to increase on your data investment, because you're no longer just compiling data, you're actually starting to use it to make decisions and drive your company. So it's pretty obvious, data analytics makes sense for growing your business, but why then are more companies not applying analytics to their finances? As you see here, some of the numbers are pretty amazing, much lower than I anticipated when I started this research. So, I know that you all are obviously collecting, calculating, publishing financial data, but according to these Gartner numbers, only a minority of companies are actually using all that work you do every month to drive their company. So, and the question is why? So some of the common reasons which keep companies from really fully utilizing their data to drive financial decisions, these are all very valid, very real obstacles. Data security, data quality, integrity. Where's that data coming from? Can we trust it? Data silos. Everybody's got data in different places. How do you pull it together? And data overload. There's so much to wrap your head around. So when you combine these issues, with the burden that already sits on financial leadership's shoulders, it becomes obvious that changes need to be made, if companies are going to become truly data-driven. So that's why Analogyx BI is starting to come into its own. Its design's been focused on these obstacles, to help companies maximize the use of all that data they're sitting on to drive their companies. Which brings us to today's topics. So we're looking at, you can read these bullets yourself. I won't bore you with that. But basically, I want to show you today how you can combine data from all your data sources to get a complete big picture with a clear understanding of where and how the numbers are generated, and all staying within a secure platform. Using predictive analytics, we can stop looking in the past all the time, start looking forward with forecasts and trend analysis, clearly understanding where the data came from. No more waiting to extract data from the system, have someone do it for you, and having to tell them exactly how you'd like to see it, and then going through multiple iterations until they get it right. You can see how we'll see how analytics can reduce data overload. Basically, start working smarter, not harder. Get away from some of that number crunching. Let the analytics do that, so you can spend more time doing actual analysis of your finances. And really, there's no more need to wrestle with, you got AFR, FRX, Excel Connect, BAQs, SSRS, all these reporting tools that take a quite a bit of effort to set up and use. From a consultant point of view, I shouldn't complain, because we've built a lot of hours over the years setting those setting all those up and doing all the training on BAQs, SSRS. Getting AFR set up is always interesting and needs constant changes. So now we're moving into, with Analogyx, simple point and click on graphical visualizations that you'll see later, gives you robust reports that can be shared, downloaded, or printed, without being an Excel expert or maintaining a expertise in one of these other reporting methods. So I'm going to just jump out the Analogyx site. and let's take a look at how we can make the most out of Epicor finances with Analogyx. So let me bring you out here. So hopefully now you should all see our Analogyx site. Let me hide these bookmarks so they don't take up space. There we go. So the first thing you notice, of course, Analogyx is cloud-based. So you're always in the latest version with no need for patches or upgrades, no need for additional hardware, software, refreshing both of those every couple of years. And it doesn't matter which version of Epicor you're on. As you know, some of the EDA, for example, requires you to be on a minimum Epicor platform. We really don't care what Epicor platform you are. If you got data and you're kicking out data, we can use it. Basic layout. So on the left is a navigation pane. This is only visible to admins and power users, based on permissions. So this is where data sources, dashboards, charts, user permissions, email schedules. With Analogyx, any dashboard or chart you can set up on a regular email schedule. So whether it be daily, monthly, weekly. When I get up in the morning, like I have the invoice report sitting in my inbox waiting for me, so I can see what invoices were sent out. And that's tied to user security, so I only see those that affect my sales territory, for example. So we'll be coming back to this a bit later if we have time to look at some of the basic tools in here. Some viewers are going to be working over here on the right. And again, this is all based on user permissions. So down to the level that you want to clarify, whether it be down to sales territory or by group like finance or sales. Just like in Epicor, we can apply these user securities so that people only see what you want them to see. We have this basic structure in here, like favorites, executive, sales. Based on your user permission, you could come in here and see all of these or none of these. We could actually customize each one of these titles to, we could say Frank, and then we just have two dashboards under the Frank sees. So you can tightly control who's seeing what and using it. This is our favorites tab. So on any dashboard, as you'll see as we get into it, there's a little star at the top. Just by clicking on the star, it throws it to your favorites tab, so you don't have to work through and then look for a dashboard, because there's a lot of dashboards in here. Likewise, we have search capabilities. I could just start typing sales, see everything has the word sales in it, pick one of those. And we also, throughout the application, have we use Control A as a shortcut. It pops up a little search window. You can type in a dashboard from wherever you are and look for a dashboard for, along your topic. So very easy to get in and move around. So with our tabs, we'll take a quick view here. So this is our executive area. This is where executive dashboards live. So if you have executives who have certain key dashboards they want to see, easy to keep it in here. And this could be, not just by executive, but by name, president, CFO, whatever. Under sales, we have orders. So all of our order dashboards. And these are the ones, everything you're seeing today is out of the box. Nothing I'm doing today is extra or not included. So quotations, we have under finance, we have accounting. We'll be coming back to this later. AR, AP, we have a section for cash management. We're just looking at our cash details. CRM, we have a complete selection of CRM looking, from marketing, doing customer segmentation up through opportunities that came from marketing, customer lifetime value predictions. Our sales metrics are in here. Production, we have job management, which is our typical what you'd see from modules within Epicor. And likewise, we have production management, which is an area we build out and continue to build out. Things that aren't typically in Epicor modules, like machine cycle time and resource loading and production planner workbench. Supply chain, we have our inventory, purchasing. We have all of our shipping and receiving dashboards. Under warehouse, this is where we have things that kind of like in production, items aren't really strictly like Epicor modules, but offshoots of that, where we can look at stock cost, lot details. Stock expiration is a big one, so you can understand what do I have that could be expiring soon, so I need to try to use it so I don't lose money. We have supplier quality, And then we have planning and scheduling, which is we're building out project management, as well as service, where we have case management and the service related modules. So a lot of modules to choose from. And again, all these dashboards and charts are out of the box, and we're constantly adding more. As we talk to customers and they're like, "Oh, it'd be nice to see this." We just build a new dashboard and throw it in there as a standard product. But today we're talking about money. So let's go into our CFO executive dashboard. So I could do this from executive. I could also do it under finance. I've got a couple places. So I'm going to go into the CFO dashboard. So this is one of our executive dashboards that provides quick overviews of key metrics. And since today's financials, we're working, of course, with CFO dashboard. So this is designed to give CFOs and senior finance team an overview of like all the important metrics across all the areas of the company. And you can drill down from here as needed. Again, this dashboard's out of the box at no additional cost, but it can be configured with whichever metrics an individual user needs to see. There may be things in here you don't want to see, and might be other things you do want to see. So very easy to add charts to these, and hopefully we'll have time later. I'll go through some of that with you. So looking at each one of these metrics, each metric contains a digital value of the total amount, a trend analysis, so you can kind of get an overview of the trending, as well as a indicator per time period. Here it's set up by month. That can be configured to weekly, quarterly, annually, so you get a sense of how you're trending up or down, so and by what percentage. If we want to look at any of these metrics in detail, underneath most of them, we have this little arrow icon that's called Navigate to Details, and we'll be using that a lot. We'll be going to the dashboard and the information behind this metric, so we can drill down if we need to. So as we go through here, we can see we have total invoice receipts, how much money we've received from customers, total invoiced amount we've invoiced customers so far, and this is all based on time period we select. And this time range, as we can see over here, we could set this up to be really anything. We have some canned ones, so we could say we want to see by quarter, by month, by date. We could do custom. And I could say, show me the last, say, 2 years. And I say, okay, hopefully I have enough data in this database. And I do. So I can set this time range. And as you notice throughout our product, as we change the time range and make changes, everything in the dashboard reflects that change. So now I'm looking at everything for the last 2 years. And I'll run this back to I'll go back to year to date. So continue through some of the metrics at this top level in regards to finance. We have our total open AR amount, so basically our outstanding receivables. Total customer orders. So this is the firm number of customer orders, and again, year to date, because that's our filter. And you'll see throughout, if you ever aren't sure what the filters are on a metric, we have these breadcrumb widgets, I call them. So I can see, and I'll show you later, there'll be a stack of these as I do some filtering, but I can see that this is filtered on time range year to date. So if I weren't in a position on the dashboard, I could easily see the filter on the left hand side. I can always tell what each chart is filtered on. We have our number of trading customers, how many unique customers placed orders year to date. Average order per value, average value per order, of course, up here, and average order value per customer, pretty self-explanatory. But gives you good metrics of what are your what are your averages, how you trending. Total purchasing spend. So this is the total of POs that have been generated, right next to total open payables. So these are outstanding payables that yet to be paid. On-hand inventory. This metric is based on inventory as of today, so this doesn't change with the time period. So we changed that. You'll notice this value did not change. And note that with these types of speedometer gauges, you can set the threshold limits based on your terms. So if you green, you want to be $1 million, and orange $2 million, and red 3. Those are completely adjustable to whatever you need those thresholds to be. So we have our cash and bank. Of course, this is a consolidated view of all of our bank accounts. Days sales outstanding, days PO outstanding. So these are sales and payables, what our days outstanding are. Invoice balance by customer. We look at our top 10. And with any of our charts, we could click on this and say, well, I don't want to see just 10. I want to see, let's say, 25. And now this number will show me 25. Likewise, I could type any number in there if I want to see 7 or 6. We just have those even numbers in there, just some parameters entered for you already. Discount amount by supplier. So these are discounts available to you by the supplier, if you pay within terms. Past due AP balance. Now this is a chart that I'm hoping most companies, aren't needing to utilize a whole lot and monitor, but these are, past due APs that need to be paid. And we go down to here's bank balance. So as you see, we also have, if you will, tabular or spreadsheet looks to our charts. And this is a breakdown of each bank account with the running balance. So definitely a lot of really important critical information right at your fingertips within these executive dashboards. And if we want to take a deeper look, let's look behind one of these metrics. Let me look at we've been playing with this one. Let's go to invoice balance by customer. So underneath, hopefully it'll pop up here. You see this little arrow, and that is called navigate to details. So I'm going to click on that. And what that's going to do is open my AR balance dashboard. So notice, the first thing you notice that our time range carried through. That we set in the executive dashboard. So that's important to know that when you set, you don't have to keep changing it every time. But if you want to keep this range, or if you want to change a new range, you can within each dashboard. So we see our invoice balance by due date. We can see it by company. So this is by company. So this is multi-company. If you're multi-company, either in Epicor or in your enterprise, you might have other companies under your umbrella that are not in Epicor. You can still pull that data into our data warehouse in Analogyx and then consolidate all your views. That's a very common thing. So we can look, what we're looking at here, we could be looking at data that's all in Epicor, or a mixture of from Epicor, from another company's ERP system, from Excel spreadsheets. Really any data source can be pulled in here and consolidated. We can see it by plant, and then we can also look at it by country. So here we are, in Epicor terms, customer groups, invoice balance by customer, by sales rep, so we kind of know who's out there pounding the pavement, and even broken down to invoice number. So let's go back to our CFO dashboard, and let's look at, we could look at AR balance amount. So now we know what all the invoices have been issued to customers. Now we can look at, let's look under AR invoices dashboard. So if we look under our total invoices amount, total invoiced amount, and again, we're going to navigate to details. And now we're in our AR invoices dashboard. So here we see charts, they're going to detail our invoiced amount by due date, by sales rep. We got aging information here. So, what's the value of overdue versus current invoices, as well as on-time payment amount by invoice date and by customer, and again, all the way down to invoice number. So this is probably a good dashboard. I want to explain some more of Analogyx structure and accessibilities. So within any chart in Analogyx, we can use ellipses to change the number of records being viewed, as we saw. So as we saw, we could change, again, invoice balance by customer. We could change this to any number we want. And again, with any chart, let's say we'll pick 25. Any of our charts, this may get difficult to see in some of the charts if your screen is small, you're like me and getting old and your eyes are getting bad. Every chart has a min-max button. So I can click on this down here in the corner and expand this chart to full screen. Once I'm finished, I just click the min-max again, and we're back to our dashboard. Now, we can take a look at filtering capabilities within the dashboard. So we'll use a combination. We can use our filter. On the right, we have summary filters in each dashboard. So let's say on the filter bar, let's pick one of our companies. We're multi-company, but we just want to see how let's see how Johnson & Wilson does. Now you notice our whole dashboard will change because now we're looking at all the data for just the Johnson & Wilson company in our multi-company environment. I likewise then could go to my sales reps and I could say, without using my filter bar, I can go right into the chart and I could say, let's see what Anna and Victoria are doing. So now I'm looking at data just for these two sales reps within that company. And if we go to our detail tab, again, Epicor, we're following Epicor protocol. That we have our header tab, so our top level information, and then we have our detail tab. The detail now is where we can start seeing line item type information like part number, part group, part class. And we can notice by our widgets, our breadcrumbs. So I can look here and see, okay, this chart is filtered on year to date for sales reps Anna and Victoria, and for the company Johnson & Wilson. So we could go deeper and say, well, I just want to see part group. Let's go on within fabricated part group. So now we've gone even further and added another filter to this, down to part number, description, and down to invoice number. And again, easily can step through my widgets and just verify where I'm at. If I want to remove one of those charts from my filters, I very easily can go back to this chart and I click this little eraser guy, and now we're no longer filtered by him. Now we're just back to company, sales reps, and year to date. Likewise, we can use that same icon at the top to reset an entire dashboard. If we've made filters that we want to keep and we don't have to keep adjusting it each time, we can click the save state. So when I come back in here as a user, recognizes who I am, it's going to apply all those filters for me and all the view I had set up, so I don't have to keep every time I come in here rechanging filters. So that's a huge time saver. And now let's look at our table tab. So our table tab in these dashboards, this is the data behind the charts. This is what's being pulled in from the data set. So all this is coming in this case, from Epicor. So when I first open this and I run no filters, all the data is in this, the spreadsheet type format. But just by clicking on those buttons I did, using the drop down, just clicking on graphicals, I now have a filtered spreadsheet. So everything, all the parameters I picked result in this table. So I really don't have to be an Excel pivot table guru. I didn't need IT's help. I'm just a standard viewer in this case, making some selections. So, in this case, we can also use the columns tab. So I can go in here and pick and say, well, I don't really care about plant or country. And now I can take those columns out. I can use the copy button. When I copy this copies it to my clipboard. I can paste it wherever I need to paste this data. Excel, of course, this will export to Excel. This will create a PDF of this information. And print, of course, will send it to my printer. And one step further, this one's for you, John. This is a tab that's really gaining a lot of attention, the About tab. Because one thing we run into a lot is people, when you get into meetings, you start looking at data, you don't know where it came from. And people you realize they're using different calculations, different formulas, different data source. So on this About tab, you can type in, what this dashboard's for, what significance is. And we have all these out of the box. But if you get into starting to manipulate some of your own, this is where we come in here and we can see, how do we calculate invoice amount or balance? And this is a pretty simple one. When we get into some of the algorithm ones, it's very important to see what formulas we're using. But this way, everybody knows where this data came from. So there's no wondering, why there's different values, because this way everybody's on the same page. Let's go back and look at some more metrics. let's see. Oh, customer orders. That's always a good one. So we'll go to total customer orders. Let's look at the numbers behind there. So this is a sales order dashboard. This is one of everybody's favorites. And we've looked at this several of our webinars, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but it does give some very important information for finance to understand, what's out there. Uh, Another thing I like to show here is this use of annotations. These colored rectangles are called annotations. They can be applied anywhere throughout Analogyx to explain what happened during a time period. In this case, this was from marketing. We had some marketing campaigns going on. So from March to May, we had a marketing campaign called Postcard Direct Mail. So by applying this annotation over graphs, we can see what happened. So if in finance, like you had a period where you did some write-offs or you made some accounting changes, you could use an annotation to explain why there's a change in data or what happened during that time period. So again, we're all about visibility of what's going on and why. Of course, here we have our order amount by date, breaking it down into order status by sales reps. There's a couple good tools on here that I like to use on monthly order amount, for example, by top 5 sales reps. Any of these, I can, just by clicking the color, I can exclude that person or bring it back in, that piece of data. Likewise, underneath this chart, you'll see this little toggle button. And what this does is gives us the ability to write descriptions for this chart, but without it taking up all the space. So we want to know that these order amounts are based on bookings. So we had that, but now I can turn that off. And what it does is saves room on my screen. But again, if I have any questions about it, I can click here and see what's this chart about and where's it derived from. And again, multi-company. This is something I can't stress enough. We get a lot of questions about this. No matter how many companies you have set up, whether in Epicor or not, we can pull all that data together and consolidate it. And map charts are always kind of cool. Can see where your sales are in the USA. And you'll notice colors to indicate different values, different metrics. Dark green in this case being our higher sales, red being lower. So it looks like New York is killing it. And here I'll take a quick detour to show you how easy it is to modify an existing chart. So let's say this order status chart, let's say that I really don't want to see it as a pie. So let's switch it to a bar chart, for example. So if I go down here and I do edit my chart, in here it says I can see it's a pie chart. But by clicking on that, I can choose some other visualizations. It depends on the type of data. Some work, some don't. And that's something you quickly learn. But let's just change this to a bar chart. If I run that, I now have a bar. And I can say, well, let's add some things to this. Let's give it bar values. So now at the end, we have the value, the number of closed orders and open orders. And likewise, I can give it x-axis label and y-axis label. Whatever I type in here now will show up as labels. So I save this and close my window. And now I just changed a pie chart to a bar chart. So very easy to go and manipulate a chart. So you can even change names on these just by clicking on them. You can actually change the name of the chart. So what I just did there in 30 seconds, that would take a total rewrite of any dashboard report within Epicor. And quite honestly, there aren't many users actually out there in Epicor who can really create a real nice pie or bar chart dashboard, let alone make it that is flexible and can be changed on the fly. So, all right, so I digressed. Let's get back to financials. Let's take a look at purchasing spend. That's always a good one. So now this is going to put us in our AP invoices. This is where we'll see details on supplier invoices. So we have our total invoice amount on payables. This is payable invoice amount by due date. Okay, so we can start looking at where we got to start making sure we have cash for. By our multi-company by supplier group, by supplier, down to the invoice number. And this one, we can actually work from let's work from the ground up on this one. So down here, invoice amount by invoice number, for example. Let's pick this guy, see what we get out of him. So let's start with this invoice number, 309-B. We see that supplier group, he's a steel supplier. It's actually purchasing something from two different suppliers. It's interesting. Never know what's going on with test data sometimes. And then we can actually build that up to look at our detail and see that purchase order is for, what part group, what part class, and what part numbers are on that invoice. So very quickly, you can dive down into AP invoicing and see from a top level, what's our total, what's out there, versus suddenly we can then go down to a very minute, detailed level. Again, without multiple reports and without creating a lot of work. Let's look at inventory. A lot of people ask about inventory. So if we go into this on-hand inventory and let's look behind it. This is where we're going to get a big picture of part costs. This is our part cost dashboard. And getting a big picture of part costs, it's always been kind of difficult in Epicor, which makes overall inventory analysis kind of, difficult, almost impossible. So here we see our part costs broken out by type across each of our companies, by part group and part class, by part number. And then we can actually view our part cost details tabs. So we actually have part cost details now. We've broken this out a little bit more with percentage to actually see that this is a good idea of, if we're using standard costs, comparing it to the average total cost, where do we have some differences? For example, this MBLD looks like in our system we have a standard total cost, but the average total cost being calculated by POs and receipts, etc., is much less. We're really overestimating the standard total cost of this one, and I think pump is a good example the other way. We have our standard cost set much lower than what the cost actually appears to be. So really powerful tool in establishing part costs. Let's see, here's another interesting metric. Let's look at discount amount by supplier. That's always a good one. And we'll go to our numbers behind there. So this shows, how much discounts, we've taken advantage of, how many are upcoming, how much we've missed. So as you notice here, currently discount says upcoming discounts is what's selected first. So we can see our potential for savings per our time period. Now we can see what we've missed out on. We can change that, and let's look at missed discounts. So now we see by discount date all the discounts we didn't pay within terms, so we didn't take advantage of. And we could see these by category, by company, by supplier group, discount amount by supplier, down to the discount amount by invoice number. And of course, up here, our last choice too is we could look at these are ones we took advantage of. These are ones we actually did pay within terms and actually got that discount. So we can see over here that Kemp Galloway Company seems to be much better at paying within terms and using their cash wisely. And speaking of cash, that's always a good thing to look at. So let's kind of go into let's look at bank balances here. What's behind here? So this is going to take us to our cash on hand dashboard. So here we can see credit, debit, and ongoing balances, by fiscal year, our bank account, by currency, pretty much any way you can imagine that you'd want to view your cash on hand. Again, this is basic information every company needs, but it's really difficult. to get from out of the box reporting. So that was so exciting that let's look at um, let's go look at one more metric here before we move into corporate financial reporting. So let's look at cash and bank. So we'll look at our cash and bank. We'll go behind the scenes here. So in addition to getting the view of our big three across the top, cash and bank, AP past due, AR past due, we can look at cash projection for the next 8 weeks. So, this is based on AR due. So here's AR due in the next 7 weeks, for example. And you'll notice that we have by due date, and this is by the invoice due date, but we also have it by average pay days. So what this is doing is looking at the customer's behavior. How long do they typically take to pay? So this is kind of reality versus theory. Many times, companies have to base their AR projections on the due date, but what we've done here is did it by actual customer behavior, which is probably going to be more realistic than what you'll be seeing. Here's our backlog in the next 7 weeks. This is open orders, assuming they'll be shipped by the due date and the customer pays per terms. AP due in the next 7 weeks. So these are invoices already received from suppliers or vendors, and shows the amount based on payment due date also. And we have our open payables in the next 5 weeks. So POs, you're expected to receive based on the due date and then the subsequent payment. So that all leads up to this cash in versus cash out projection for the next 7 weeks. So what we can see here is, looking forward, how are we doing on cash? We have enough coming in versus going out. And here we're looking pretty good. This was an important metric during COVID, during the lockdown. When companies couldn't get access to their data, they were really blind as to a lot of this cash flow information. We can also add, a lot of other cash. So you could, incoming, outgoing transactions like, employee salaries, insurance, maintenance, EMIs, fixed overhead, miscellaneous charges. So any of that data can be added into these cash flow projection charts. And of course, time range can be changed depending on how far out you want to look. Maybe you like to operate, 4 weeks out or 10 weeks out. So the final result, is really a complete big picture view of the cash. So you can be proactive in, managing perhaps, workforce size, materials, mergers and acquisitions, and have confidence in that you kind of have a good feeling for what's really happening. So now, I think we've covered. This is what I've been calling, managerial finance information. Those things used to manage your company and sometimes on a daily basis. So now let's look at corporate financing, and this is I know a lot of you are very interested in. So if we go to our finance and accounting, let's start with our balance sheet. So the balance sheet, we have our typical balance sheet structure showing our assets, capital, COGS, expense, income and liability. By GL account and by time period, we could pick any time period we like, time range, whether we could either do a specific month, a certain quarter. Like here, I could just go in and pick, for example, let's say, let's look at we want to see just June. So I could pick June 1st to June 30th. So I can quickly filter my data right to that specific time period. I'll go back to, I'll just go back to year to date. So another thing I want to note here is that we just have this broken out to GL account, but I know within Epicor, if you're using multi-segments, this can actually be broken down into, multiple segments. However deep you need to go, we can break this down. You also notice, we have subtotals for each one, so you don't have to, break out the calculator. Negative numbers are bracketed. So if you'll notice here, we've got, bracketed for a negative number. And we can also sort. For example, if we want to click on our total column, we could sort by our totals. So that's, balance sheet, pretty basic. I know that's one of the things that, balance sheet is a balance sheet. Let's go back and look now at our income statement. So again, we have the typical account types, and remember, additional GL segments can easily be added to further break these down. And we can also, in this case, sort by balance. So if I look at this, you'll notice that we can add these color indicators within a cell to show, negative all the way up to positive, and how negative or how positive based upon the depth of the color. And again, these are all can be configured by yourself. What is green, what is yellow, what is red. So again, gives you a quick overview of values for reference. So the income statement, for example, I could easily, well, as I said, adjust my columns. Let's create a PDF, for example. I'll do that right now. So I'm sending this to a PDF. All I did was click PDF. I now have my income statement, and we'll open here as a PDF. So just like that, I can print it, distribute it, whatever I need to do with it, stick it in my filing cabinet. So that's the income statement. And now let's look at, here's a crowd favorite. Income and expense are basically the P&L. So this is an interactive dashboard, not just a report that spits out. But here we can see crossed up our KPI indicators for revenue. We have COGS, gross margin, which in this case is revenue minus COGS. We have operating expenses, and we have operating income, which is a gross margin minus our operating expenses. As you can see, our negatives are bracketed. Other income and expense is in here. We have income before tax. Net income. And behind all this, if we want to see details on the metrics, is our income statement basically also down here that we just saw, but it's also embedded within this dashboard. And remember, we have a way, all these can be copied, exported to Excel, printed PDFs. You can also take pictures of any of these. So if I wanted to share this, I could export as a PNG and basically send a picture to somebody. And let's see, in this table, we also have monthly net profit. That's always good. It's broken out by revenue, expense, and net income. So we can see what's happening on a monthly basis here. And finally, we have our waterfall chart. So this is I think, pretty cool chart. So what it's showing is, how do we get to our operating income, at the end, and it's by the source. So here we have, sales, revenue received from service, and then we have our cost of goods sold. We had to pay some customs, our exchange rate, freight, marketing. So these are all things now that are whittling away at our revenue to end up with our operating income down at the bottom. So a really great overall view to kind of see what's affecting your net income, or operating income. Where's that coming from? We also have a new feature that we've added. So basically a cross-reference feature. So it allows us, as I kind of spoke about this before, to pull in financial data from multiple sources. And they don't have to match. So for example, if you have a company outside Epicor, or even individual companies within Epicor, if the chart of accounts isn't the same, or you have different GLs, you can still import that data in the Analogyx data warehouse and create a consolidated view of that using the data set. So you really do get a complete cross-sectional view of your entire enterprise. So this is really big, like private equity firms that own multiple companies. Those companies certainly don't have the same structure when they're starting out. So they can pull all this data together and consolidate in a view that makes sense for them across everybody. So that is our financial reporting section of this. I want to look at time. 22. I was going to run through and create a data set quickly, but think what we'll do is I want to move on because we only allocate an hour for this. So what I want to do is some other point. If you have any questions about how these dashboards are created, or data sets, or the charts within them, reach out, because if it's only a quick 10-minute demo at that, I can show you how to do this. Basically, you take your data set, you say, yep, I want to look at this data set using these fields. You create a dashboard, and dragging your charts sounds like building a website. You're just clicking and dragging and dropping charts in place. So that's something that, yeah, I'd love to show you, but I just don't want to run you out of time here. I want to give you time for questions. So let's we'll skip that for now, and we'll either do a separate webinar for that, or like I said, reach out. We'll do that directly for you. So let's go back to the demo. So one of the questions here again now is, why Analogyx? We as IHS did a lot of look. We went, we've been around the block, and we were like, okay, what really works? We looked different at Analogyx products, different platforms, and we wanted something that was easy to use, didn't require users to have a lot of knowledge. One platform, the data warehouse is getting to be a huge thing. We need to pull this data together. So after all our searching, we ended up on Analogyx because of all the reasons you see here. What you saw today is out of the box. There's no additional charges for it. In addition, we didn't really show our forecasting. We have forecasting built in, and that's also included. So everything's built in. And data security, give you a quick view of this. So basically, this is a visual representation. So we have data ingestions. We have pre-built connectors for Epicor. So no matter if you're in the cloud, public, multi-tenant, or on-premise, we already have connectors built that pull the data not out of Epicor, but also out of any other data sources you have, whether it be other ERPs or a standalone database or Excel or CSV. We pull that data out on a one-way encrypted tunnel up to our data warehouse, which is also included and built in. And this sits on AWS, so this is not in somebody's bedroom. This is legit secure platform. We follow all their protocols and best practices. And that's where we pull all this data together from all the sources, and we transform it, put it in the data sets that make sense. We load it all in there, and then you can apply the visualizations to it, all the charts and graphs that it went, and even other reporting tools. If you have a reporting tool that someone else is really hell-bent on using, now that we have all this data together in one place, they can apply that reporting tool to our data warehouse and use that as their foundation. The key here, as you notice, is it's one way. So when people are running reports and all this analytics and data, they're not hitting your data source. Two good things about that. One is security. Every connection into that creates a security risk. And three things. Two is they're not corrupting your data because nothing gets written back. And three is just saving the load, because your server or whatever you're running on, whenever you run a report or any kind of query, you're putting a load on that. So this saves all your load and saves it for users using it, not for reporting. Then last thing we do is we apply the advanced algorithms and AI, and then users using HTTPS to log in and actually see their data like we just saw. So very, very secure, and that's really one of the main things we went for. Pricing, let me run through this real quick. Very inexpensive, as you see here. 5-user base package, which gives you an admin, power user, three viewers. Everything you saw here today is in there. We load your historical data, technical support's included, training's included. There's no additional maintenance fees. So a one-time setup fee, and then the annual maintenance, annual contract, which is comes out to $260 a month for those 5 users. So compare that to some of these other prices we're looking at. For example, here in EDA, and we put Excel Connect in here because they kind of are starting to do more than just finance, but they are still very limited. But if you look down through here, we don't have the additional cost and hidden costs. EDA, for example, is when you install it, or the implementation, it's hours as consumed, so you get an estimate. Currently, the estimate is around 40 hours. So if you're talking 200 or plus per hour that you're paying Epicor, you could be paying around 10,000, but you don't know. And that's why we want to go with a flat fee. You know what it costs up front. We have you up and running within 3 to 5 days. Get your basic core modules up and running. Within the second week, you're completely ready to go. Everything's operational. So monthly fees, as you can see, are quite a bit lower. Um, we didn't put Power BI on here. People ask us about that a lot because we don't really see them as a competitor, because sometimes because of our data warehouse, people will run Power BI and use it using our data. So there's just some companies that are just tied to Power BI. They're Microsoft shops, but Power BI doesn't have its own data warehouse unless you pay for the rather very expensive version. So this allows you for quite a low end cost to get that data warehouse in place. And if people that really need Power BI, you can run it from there.